All right, so today we're looking at Eli Lilly, a company that's been around since 1876. I mean, their impact on healthcare is pretty undeniable. They were pioneers in insulin and have developed some truly groundbreaking cancer treatments. But we're shifting gears a bit today. We're going to look at Eli Lilly as an investment. So, do their financials and their position in the industry make them a smart bet for investors right now?
It's a really interesting case study. I mean, they operate in a high-stakes environment, high reward too, of course. So understanding their approach, it's key to figuring out their investment potential.
Okay, let's jump right into their financials. Eli Lilly had strong revenue in 2023. Products like Mounjaro, Verzenio, and Jardiance drove a lot of that growth. But, and this is interesting, their net income and earnings per share actually decreased in 2023.
Yeah, that's right. You see that decrease is largely because of their increased spending, primarily on research and development, and also costs associated with acquisitions, particularly absorbing the R&D of the companies that they've acquired. So it does signal aggressive growth, but it makes you wonder about their ability to integrate these acquisitions and actually achieve a return on that investment.
So they're spending a lot to fuel future growth, but it's definitely having an impact on their bottom line right now. And the revenue reporting is interesting. They actually account for potential future costs, like rebates and discounts, and factor those reductions into their revenue right away, even if the actual payments for those things don't happen for months.
Yeah, and that's an important thing for investors to keep in mind. It means that the reported revenue figures are likely more conservative than they might seem, so investors really need to dig deeper and understand those revenue recognition policies.
All right, so beyond the numbers, what's Eli Lilly's overarching strategy? They seem to be really focused on innovation, which makes sense in an industry that's moving so fast.
Oh, absolutely. Their commitment to R&D, both internally and through acquisitions, it's really central to their strategy. They're constantly working to expand that product portfolio and trying to address those unmet medical needs. And that proactive approach is absolutely crucial for staying ahead in this industry, especially with patents constantly under threat.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. They're also making some big investments in expanding their global manufacturing capacity. New facilities in Indiana, North Carolina, even Germany and Ireland. It's a pretty clear sign that they're anticipating a lot of growth and demand for their products.
For sure. I mean, their manufacturing expansion, it definitely signals confidence in their future. They're not just developing new drugs, they're making sure they can actually produce them and distribute them globally. So yeah, I think it suggests that they're thinking long-term and anticipating a significant increase in their market share.
It's not just about brick and mortar, though. They're also really emphasizing employee training and development. It seems like you're trying to build a culture of continuous learning.
Yeah, that's important. A highly skilled workforce is going to be critical for driving innovation, for optimizing those manufacturing processes, and ultimately for creating better products.
So let's zoom out a bit and look at the competitive landscape. Eli Lilly isn't alone in this. It's a crowded field. You've got multinational giants, smaller biotech firms, and generic drug manufacturers, all competing for market share.
Exactly. And each of those types of competitors presents its own set of challenges for Eli Lilly. Generic manufacturers are constantly trying to challenge their patents, especially outside the U.S., where patent laws can be less strict. This puts immense pressure on them to constantly innovate and bring new patented products to market.
Yeah, it's a race against time. And then there's the pressure from other brand name pharmaceuticals.
Right. They have to be first and be perceived as the best. It's a constant battle to maintain market share.
And what about the pressure to control healthcare costs? That seems like a major factor for Eli Lilly to consider.
It is. You've got governments implementing regulations, healthcare systems are trying to reform, and the public is demanding more affordable medications. In the U.S., the Inflation Reduction Act, which allows the government to negotiate prices for certain drugs, adds another layer of complexity to this.
So how does all of this affect Eli Lilly's potential as an investment?
Well, the pharmaceutical industry is inherently risky, but Eli Lilly does have some strengths. They've got a strong pipeline of potential new therapies, a solid cash position, and a pretty good track record when it comes to bringing new drugs to market.
But those strengths,
Yeah.
they have to be balanced against those challenges, like the declining profitability, the intense competition, and the potential impact of price controls.
Right. It's a classic high-risk, high-reward situation. So before making any decisions, we need to look closer at their specific strategies, their ability to manage risk, and their plans for navigating this complex healthcare landscape.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack, so let's dive in.
It's a balancing act. Can they keep innovating while dealing with all that pressure? Can they get new therapies to market fast enough? Fast enough to offset potential revenue losses from those patent expirations and price controls? These are the things investors have to think about.
Okay, so lots of challenges. But let's talk about Eli Lilly's strengths. Aside from their revenue growth and history of innovation, what could make them a good investment?
Well, their pipeline of new therapies is a big plus. They're actively investing in R&D, and they're not just going after anything. They're targeting areas with big unmet medical needs. If those therapies work out, there could be a lot of demand.
Smart targeting, not just spending money for the sake of it.
Right. They're going after things like Alzheimer's disease, immunology, and diabetes, areas where there's a huge need for new treatments.
Okay, so that brings us back to profitability. We talked about revenue and R&D spending. What about their cash on hand and debt? How are they managing all that with these ambitious growth plans?
At the end of 2023, they had $2.82 billion in cash, which is good. It gives them flexibility to fund R&D and acquisitions and those manufacturing expansions we talked about. But you also have to consider their debt. They've taken on some fixed-rate notes, some with maturities decades out.
Decades, that's a long time.
It is. And rising interest rates could become a problem. It could make that debt more expensive to service, and that could cut into their profits.
Okay, so back to strategic goals. Let's talk about intellectual property. Patents are important for any pharmaceutical company, but Eli Lilly's got those generic manufacturers to worry about. How are they handling that?
They're being very strategic about it. They're using a combination of patents and data protection and other legal things to protect their inventions. And they're not afraid to defend those patents, especially against those generic manufacturers. But those legal battles can be expensive.
It's a constant battle.
It is.
They've got to innovate to stay ahead.
Yeah.
And protect what they already have. What about their global access programs, like the 30 by 30 program? How might that affect their finances?
It's kind of a two-pronged approach, expanding access to medicine in lower-income countries and potentially creating new revenue streams. By making their products more affordable in those areas, they're reaching new customers.
So a socially responsible approach, that could also be good for business.
Exactly. It addresses a global health issue and positions them for growth in those emerging markets. But of course, these things take investment. And they might not make a lot of money right away.
A long-term play with potential benefits down the road. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Financials, strategy, industry landscape, even global initiatives. Anything else investors should be aware of?
Well, don't forget about currency exchange rates. Eli Lilly gets a big chunk of its revenue from outside the U.S. If the dollar gets stronger, that could hurt their earnings.
So they're at the mercy of the currency market.
In a way. And then there's inflation. They can try to raise prices, but they're in a price-sensitive industry, especially with the possibility of more government intervention.
Okay, lots to think about. What's your take on Eli Lilly as an investment?
It's not a simple answer. It depends on the individual investor, their goals, and their risk tolerance. Eli Lilly has good revenue growth, and they're a leader in a high-demand industry. Their cash position and commitment to innovation are both positive signs.
But we can't ignore their declining profitability, the competition, and the potential impact of price controls.
Exactly. So if you're looking for growth, and you're okay with some risk, Eli Lilly might be a good choice. But if you're more risk-averse, you might want to wait and see what happens.
Do your research, weigh the risks and rewards.
Exactly.
Good advice. It sounds like they're kind of a crossroads. They've got a good foundation, but some strong headwinds too. How are they adapting and keeping their edge? They can't just rely on what they already have, right?
Right. They're definitely thinking ahead. One thing they're doing is focusing on personalized medicine, investing in research to develop therapies tailored to the individual, based on genetics, lifestyle, you name it.
So moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. It's about using data to make treatment more precise and effective.
And that's a trend across healthcare.
It is. A big one. Yeah. And it could give them a real advantage.
What about digital health technologies? Wearables, mobile apps, things like that. Trendy side project or a serious part of their strategy?
Serious.
Okay.
Yeah. They see it as a way to enhance their core business and create new opportunities. These technologies can help monitor patients, provide support and education, even improve adherence to treatment.
I can see it.
Imagine a wearable, not just tracking your blood sugar, but adjusting your insulin dosage automatically.
Feels futuristic.
It's getting there. Yeah. And Eli Lilly wants to be a leader in this.
Okay, so embracing new technology. But what about drug pricing? That's a big issue. What are they doing about that?
They're not ignoring it. They're exploring things like value-based pricing, where the cost is tied to how well the drug works.
So if it doesn't work,
Yeah.
you don't pay the full price.
Right. It shifts the focus to value, not just volume.
Makes sense.
It's complex, requires a lot of collaboration, but it has a lot of promise.
A win-win. Addresses affordability. Rewards companies for developing effective treatments.
Exactly. They're also talking to policymakers, trying to find solutions to those underlying issues.
Okay, so they're actively trying to find solutions. Good to hear. Any other risks or challenges investors should be aware of?
Well, there's always the possibility of unexpected problems in drug development. Clinical trials can fail. Regulatory approvals can get delayed. Side effects can pop up.
That's always a risk.
It is. And there are always potential legal issues.
We talked about patent battles.
Right. But things like product liability lawsuits and investigations into pricing practices, those are things investors have to consider.
So consider the upside. But don't forget about the potential downsides.
Exactly. There's always some degree of risk. But for the right investor, Eli Lilly could be a good opportunity.
So a company with a strong history, promising new therapies, and a good strategy, but also some challenges.
Yes.
Declining profitability, competition, pricing pressures, potential legal risks.
Right. It's a lot to weigh.
It is.
Do your research. Figure out if it's right for you.
This has been really helpful. Thanks for breaking all this down.
You're welcome.
That's all for today. We'll see you next time.